Robert Ross, 20423 Isola Avenue, Lake Villa, Illinois. I gave the board members prior to the meeting here a copy of a permit issued by the county in 2005 for a detached garage at 7014 284th Avenue. And it was written on there by the county director of zoning and signed by the property owner that the garage is subject to not being used for personal storage only, no business related storage. At this point, the property owner has now applied for his third permit for the detached garage, and he has been given permission to use the detached garage for his construction business, which is expressly prohibited in a residential zoned subdivision. And now that was 3 years ago. He's applying for his third permit, and I don't understand why it's even being reviewed. I see Andy is here, and I know he is currently reviewing the third permit. I sent in an open record request for the permit, and I was just informed that I have to wait until it's reviewed by Todd Terry, the village attorney, before I can get a copy of the permit application. I don't understand that either. It's a simple permit application, so I'm not sure why the village attorney needs to spend time and taxpayer money reviewing it before I can see it. I also don't understand why that the permit that was issued, and Andy told me that there's no size limit. That's not true. He told me there's no restriction on what's inside an attached garage because what's in the garage is not on the property. Does that make sense to any of you? That you can just put anything in your garage, fireworks, anything, right? Even though it's prohibited by some section of the ordinance, if it's in the garage, it's not on your property. And those are things I don't understand. I've been saying this for 2 years. There are $120,000 in fines. The owner has paid less than $1,000 last time I had my open record request fulfilled. And now you're reviewing a third permit. And as far as I know, no headway is being made in collecting those fines, but you're spending taxpayer dollars for attorney fees. And that's basically all I have for now. So if I can get the permit application, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, president's comments. So there will be no primary elections. We will still have our February 17th meeting. And then I also want to remind everyone, we are taking applications for all of our boards and commissions. Number 8, presentations, petitions, communications, discussion and possible action on the following. 8.1, Triever-Wilmot Consolidated Referendum Presentation.
Hi there. Thank you for having me. I am the school board president. This is Tracy Donich. She's the district administrator, and Joe Reynolds is our treasurer. My boys went to Triever-Wilmot. They're all finished at the grade school level at this point, and Joe has a few children still in school there.
Yep, 2 daughters.
And Joe and I are both working hard on the school board, and Tracy's gonna do our presentation on the school board, the referendum that we need to continue as a school to offer the great education that we hope to give to the kids. So.
All right. Thank you for having us this evening and giving us the opportunity to talk a little bit about what we would like to continue and maintain at Triever-Wilmot School and why we are seeking a referendum. Slide. All right. There are 3 main reasons why we are seeking a referendum that you can see there. One is the state of our state funding. The second is we have wonderful amounts that the community has shared with us. That's local funding, but those are set to expire. And the third is just wanting to maintain the programs and services that we have. Next slide, please. To the first point of unreliable state funding, I'm sure everyone here who is a taxpayer is very familiar with the challenges of revenue limits. However, the state of Wisconsin has not kept up pace with inflation. Actually, right now, over the past 15 years or so, they have not been keeping that pace. And had they kept up with the pace of inflation, we would have $3,500 more per student that would be coming to us from the state level. So that is what we are feeling right now. Of course, everyone has felt inflation and how it's impacted you and your home and your family. Of course, that hits us as well. Increase in utility costs, benefits for our staff, transportation costs have increased quite a bit, and the maintenance costs of just keeping up with all what is needed at our building level. State aid does not fully cover certain mandated services. So for example, special education, back in the 1980s, our state of Wisconsin covered about 70% of special education, and we've now gone down to under 30% of that cost being supported by the state. The last budget that was passed in our legislature said that they were hoping to give us 42% and then the next year 45%. However, we've recently heard from the state that we will not be receiving 42%, that we will be only receiving 35% this year. So it's very hard to keep track of a good, well-balanced budget when you're told that you would be receiving one thing and then the revenue isn't there. So issues like that really cause us to have unreliable state funding. Slide. Local funding, our community has been very, very supportive of Triever Wilmot. You can see that this last school year, we have our general funding that comes from the state per pupil funding. And then we have had funding that comes from our local taxpayers to cover the bond that was taken out to build the newer part of Triever Wilmot. A lot of people think of Triever Wilmot as being new, but actually that new part of the building is now 15 years old. And we all understand that when your house gets to that point, you start having to fix things, replace things. And that's the new part of our building. The older part of our building is actually back to 1964. So this point, again, helped cover the new construction costs when Triever and Wilmot came together, as the state frequently suggests that consolidating would help fix financial problems. They came together, they built a new building, they cut back their administration and did all of the things that the state would recommend. However, we still have financial challenges. And this coming year, that bond will be paid off. Our board has been very, very responsible in defeasing the funds, paying things off early so that we've saved between $400,000 and $500,000 in interest. So our board has been very, very responsible with that money, but that will no longer be there. And that extra funding was supported by the taxpayers. So that money will be gone coming to our school. We also have had a referendum back in 2022 for operations because we had a gap at that point. And you can see that actually continues into the next school year, but we are seeing such a gap between what is needed and what is going away that we need to come a little bit earlier than we would hope and ask for an additional amount of money. So next year, that amount would be 1.1 million total. And then the 3 following years would be 1.9 for that. Slide. So some people wonder, well, what did you do with that $800,000 that you were given? You can see here that we maintained our facilities and repairs. We maintained our academics, our encore classes, or our specials like music, art, Phy-Ed, Spanish. We continued student support services with having a school psychologist and guidance counselor, and we have technology replacement cycles. We've actually even made a shift with our technology replacement in that now at this point, that's mostly covered all by grants. So that's another opportunity we've been able to work with funds coming from other places to replace that cycle. So I know a lot of people, when the community survey that we gave were saying that that would be a good place to make more cuts would be for technology cycles. However, that's almost 100% grant funded in our district right now. So with our funding that is expiring, and the updates that we need to continue just day to day. That is one reason we are asking for more local funding that is expiring to be replaced. Slide. And finally, what it really is all boiling down to, what's most important is doing what is right for our students. It is true that the children are our future, to quote a song or so. We want to maintain all our educational programs. So that means classes, class sizes, all those special classes we talked about, and student support services like guidance and other counseling and supports for our students. We want to be able to update our classroom textbooks. We have been in a curriculum cycle where we do that. And so we'd like to be able to continue doing that, as well as keeping up with our technology and other materials that we need. Of course, we'd like to be able to keep up with our school safety and security. Unfortunately, and particularly these days, it is a very extra important piece that we have, and we would like to be able to keep up with that and move forward with our security, as well as completing any projects that we've begun to put off as a school. Because we've been running a deficit budget, we have put off some larger projects that need to be done to keep our facilities in the wonderful shape that it's in, and we would like to be able to go ahead and complete those projects. Next slide. Anything else? Okay, just that one's over. All right. These graphs are here just for your information to show you a little bit about how the taxes are impacted in the Triever-Wilmot community. We receive taxes from not only the Village of Salem Lakes, but also a little bit from Twin Lakes, and a little bit from Randall. However, this graph shows an example of a house in the Triever-Wilmot School District, maybe around a $200,000 house, and how the market value has increased so much. In fact, even this last year, I'm sure you were all very well aware that it increased about 10%, which had some of the taxes going up. However, you can see also that Triever-Wilmot has worked very hard to be very fiscally responsible, maintain our expenses, and as that debt was being paid off, and despite inflation, we have done our best to bring down the tax or the mill rate for the property owners in Triever-Wilmot, and so that's come down quite a bit. Next slide. Here's a little more specifics on that. In our mill rate, you can see that equalized property values, you can see from 2014 till now how that has increased 10%, and the mill rate has gone down 38 cents, or that would be the amount of money that is taxed per $1,000 on a property. Next. You can also see that we've worked very hard to keep our expenses the same. We all know inflation has been up in the 8 to 10% a couple years, 4 or 5% many years. And we've worked very hard from the last few years, I could show you here, to keep those expenses as flat as possible. So we've done that by making different cuts to administration. We have cut office staff. We have gotten new insurance plans. We have, oh gosh, I'm gonna check my list so I don't miss anything. We did the defeasance, so we don't have to pay that anymore. We work hard to share services with other school districts. I know when they also areas talk about consolidating districts so that you could share services. We already do that. We're able to do that, even though we're not the same school district. So we have teachers that we share between us and the high school, or us and some of the other K-8s in the area. So those are all things that we've done to keep our expenses down. Next. All right, so what is on the ballot? We are looking to ask our community on April 7th for a new 4-year referendum. It is non-recurring because that means after that 4 years, that money is gone, which is part of why we're asking for money again. You can see that $800,000 was a non-recurring referendum. And so then since that expires, unfortunately, it's not a solution. It's a temporary Band-Aid that we have to keep asking to go to referendum. But we are asking to replace that money on April 7th. Next. What will the tax impact be? We are looking to increase our mill rate by 83 cents for next year. So that would mean putting it from 5.16 up to that plus 83 cents. And you can see the impact in the slide of what that would be. So on a $100,000 property, that's adding $83, or really about a 24 pack of Pepsi once a month is what we're asking to increase. Of course, if your property value is more, you can see that impact for the 1 year is more. We know that 1 year is just one snapshot, and we're doing our best to make estimates, but again, with all the different variables that the state shares with us, and just life happening in general. If we go to the next slide, we do our best to do some predictions out about 5 years as to what that increase would be. So you can see this year on the bottom line that the mill rate was $5.16. We would add 83 cents to that. So it looks larger, but you can see across the bottom that it's only 20 cents a jump. And then the next year after that, we would expect, if we had some increase from the state, that the next year you would see maybe 8 cents on the thousand increase, 13 cents on the thousand the next year, and then hopefully that final year would actually go back down a little bit if the state continues with the trend they're going. I know a lot of people talk about the $325 a year per pupil impact from the governor. That showed up on your local taxes this year. That actually didn't come out of state funding. So you continue to see all those things on your tax bill. But we would hope that if you have any questions about our referendum, feel free to ask, give me a call, an email, or ask any of these lovely people here. Are happy to talk with you about our referendum. You can go to the next slide. And please vote your heart on April 7th. Just get out to the polls so we know what we need to do. And then next slide, my information is here and you'll be able to get a hold of me as best we can help you. We have also information on our website. On that webpage is a tax calculator, so you could put in the exact value of your home and then be able to see what the tax impact would be specifically for you and your situation next year. Any questions or comments?
It looked like in your, it looked like in the 3 slides back when you talked about the mill rate, that that if the referendum was to be approved by the taxpayers, that the last year I saw it looked to be a negative.
Correct.
And so basically, if is that saying that if it was approved, that the way you have your budget laid out, that in that year there'd be a reduction from what it goes up to from the approval?
That is what our estimations show right now. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. One last thing, as far as we're at the village, people always ask what else we could do other than having a referendum. I would like to say if we had some sustainable resident enrollment in our area, that would help reduce the district's reliance on going to a referendum, which would mean in our particular area of Triever and Wilmot, possibly some new construction. People love to live in our area and they don't move out. We have very few new students coming in. And so at the village level, if that would be something that could ever be discussed, that's what would truly help these referendums to slow down until the state funding formula shifts. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, we can't on this part, I don't believe, right, Ramsey, because it's a, right. Yeah. Okay, number 9, Public Works, discussion and possible action on the following items. 9.1, Resolution 2026.02-151. Resolution declaring official intent to reimburse expenditures from proceeds of borrowing Clean Water Fund loan for the Valmar and Yaws sanitary sewer projects.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Hopkins and Barheit. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. 9.2, Resolution 2026.02-152. A resolution declaring official intent to reimburse expenditures from proceeds of borrowing Clean Water Fund loan for stations 201, 203, and 208 improvements project.
I'll move to approve. Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Number 10, Planning and Zoning, discussion and possible action on the following. 10.1. Ordinance 2026.02-113, rezoning request by Cawley Real Estate LLC, PO Box 648, Spring Grove, Illinois, 60081 owner. Amber Colley, P O Box 648, Spring Grove, Illinois, 60081 agent, requesting a rezoning from B2 Community Business District to B2 Community Business District and PUD Planned Unit Development Overlay District on tax parcel 704-12303-0710. For informational purposes only, this parcel is located on the east side of County Highway C, Fox River Road, approximately 100 feet south of 114th Street in downtown Wilmot.
Motion to approve. I'll second.
Questions or comments?
It was just unanimously approved by planning and zoning. 7-0 vote.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? 10.2 ordinance 2026.02-114 rezone request by 8705 Evergreen Row LLC, 9918 160th Avenue, Bristol, Wisconsin, 53104 owner, Michael Korzik, 9918 160th Avenue, Bristol, Wisconsin, 53104 agent, requesting a rezoning from R11 multiple family residential district to R11 multiple family residential district and PUD planned unit development overlay on tax parcel 704-120-142-0260. For informational purposes only, this parcel is located on the east side of State Highway 83, Antioch Road, approximately 450 feet south of 87th Street.
I'll move to approve based on the recommendation unanimously of our planning and zoning. I'll second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? 10.3 ordinance 2026.02-115 request for a land use map amendment by Countryside Commerce Center LLC, 20670 Driftwood Court, Mundelein, Illinois, 60060 owner, Daniel Yep, I gotta figure out how to say your name, Dan. Shop, 4011 80th Street, Kenosha, Wisconsin, 53142 agent. Request an amendment to the adopted land use plan maps for the Village of Salem Lakes, maps 23, 24, and 25 from Business Park to High Density Residential, Village Hamlet, and Lakefront Residential Neighborhood Conservation and Neighborhood Business on tax parcel 704-120-104-0401. For informational purposes only, this parcel is located on the west side of State Highway 83 at the intersection with Falcon Way.
Madam
Motion to-
President, I'd like to make a motion to table this until after we've worked through further on future use of that property.
Okay, we have a motion to table.
I'll second that.
This was voted on by planning and zoning and
Mhm.
approved 7-0. So something's come up in the meantime.
Just in getting a better understanding of where we're moving to with that property and the what potentially is happening with that. I just have some concerns.
With the parking.
Parking, no. No, not with the parking.
Do you want to give any more context to this before I ask for a vote?
This is, this property is right at our northern edge along Route 83. Is that correct?
This is,
I might have it mistaken. So
this
no.
is like Brenner Fields.
Right.
Mhm.
So just that this is part of the movement to make that development happen and how we're going about that. I've just got some questions on how that's going to come about. And I think we need to just stop and take a look at this a little bit closer. And that's where my context comes from.
This particular part of it does not approve TIF or anything of that nature. So even if it was approved, I mean, it's still contingent on quite a few things, but I mean, I'll go along with looking at it again.
I mean, in that context, if it's being looked at in a context of that it's not necessarily tied to the concept of a TIF or TID, then I would rescind my motion. If it's strictly just in zoning and not as part of a larger picture, then I could go along with that.
Would staff like to chime in?
Sure, yes. So the request is just for the comprehensive plan change. I mean, there's obviously many different factors that are all in play, but for the developer to be able to continue moving forward and determine like some costs and things, they wouldn't be able to do that unless they have assurance that the comprehensive plan has changed. And then the next item is for the zoning change and then the PUD. And so that's just to change the land use plan because it's all commercial. It's going to allow it to stay commercial along 83 and then have the residential component on the like 2/3 of the west side of the property. That's what the request is for.
So as long as it's clear that it's not tied to any movement forward related to the TID, then I would
Yeah,
rescind my.
those would
motion.
be other discussions.
That's good. I'll
That-
make a motion to,
Okay, so you're rescinding your,
I'll rescind my motion as long as to make it clear that it's not connected to the TID, strictly the zoning.
Okay.
Motion
So yeah, I'll motion to, as requested, 10.3, for the zoning, for the, as per the planning division, recommendation to change as listed.
I'll second it.
any other additional comments or questions? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? 10.4 ordinance 2026.02-116 rezoning request by Countryside Commerce Center LLC 20670 Driftwood Court, Mundelein, Illinois 60060, owner Daniel Schapp 4011 80th Street, Kenosha, Wisconsin 53142, agent requesting a rezoning from A2 General Agricultural District to R9 Multiple Family Residential District, R6 Urban Single Family Residential District, B1 Neighborhood Business District, C1 Lowland Resource Conservancy District, and PUD Planned Unit Development Overlay District on tax parcel 704-120-104-0401.
Motion to approve. I'll second it.
Questions or comments?
Just again, that this is the same, we're strictly changing zoning. It's not necessarily tied to any kind of a way for payment, related to TID or
Okay.
TIF.
And our planning commission vote was 6-1 on this in favor of it as well, so.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Number 11, Clerk's Office, discussion and possible action on the following items. 11.1, approval of minutes from January 20th, 2026 Village Board meeting.
I'll move to approve. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? 11.2, amend charter ordinance to change the term of municipal judge from 2 years to 4 years.
Making motion to approve. Second.
Sarah, do you want to talk to this a little bit?
So, yeah, when the municipalities merged, it's my understanding that we changed the term of judge to 2 years in order for it to jive with election cycles to combine into one court. It was found that we never changed the charter ordinance back to 4 years. And we've been running on 2-year cycles. So what's nice about a 4-year cycle is a judge, it takes a while to get the experience under his belt and the training and the cost and whatnot. So going to every 4 years would then reduce the turnover, the training dollars, and the lack of institutional knowledge.
Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, 11.3, property maintenance extension request from William DeBus Jr., 9787 271st Avenue in Schreiber. Okay, and I just want to clarify, I'm sorry, we couldn't let you talk. We have to do that during either public hearing or public, comments, so, okay. So you can go ahead and,
Yeah, I got a notice from you guys on a disrepair of a building house and looking for an extension on getting it repaired.
How long are you looking for?
Some weather break. My wife just had surgery and the weather's been terrible, so 3 months, I don't know.
Can I ask, what it is that were you cited for that you need the time? Is it painting or what is it you need to do?
Some windows need to be replaced from water damage.
That's water damage from within though, correct?
No, on the outside.
I've
There
looked,
was, there was water damage on the inside from a broken pipe because the doors were left open and the water was never turned off.
Nah, there's no water damage on the inside now. I've been in there and fixed all that.
Okay, so it's all fixed.
This is all weather damage because the siding came off up above and the rain ran down the walls and
Okay.
How long has this property been, in this condition that you were cited for?
I don't know, a year maybe?
And is this where you're living or is this a rental? You're not living there?
No.
I've looked at this property. It's been in disrepair for quite a while, okay? Say we give them till the end of May or first of April.
I would also like a contingent on that, though, that there's active permits pulled and active repairs taking
I
place.
did already pull permits.
Oh, you
And
did?
without any active repairs, then it reverts back to a citation level.
So end of May.
I just need a motion, whatever.
I'll make a motion at the end of May,
And the other stuff. Make sure it's clear that active repairs.
okay, as far as active repairs, yeah, okay? And is it as long as there's a permit pulled on it? Okay?
Yes, yeah, I
There'll be
pulled
probably be a restriction on the permit as well, so,
the permit was 6 months, I think.
okay. Should be here.
Okay. All right, so a motion to extend it to the end of May with permits and active repair.
I'll second it.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, anyone opposed?
I am.
You are?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, great. Okay, thank you.
So we're good?
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Okay, number 12, administrator discussion and possible action on the following items. 12.1, recommendation from EDC for the village board to pursue the development of a road consortium with other municipalities and to authorize staff and legal counsel to begin development of the intermunicipal cooperation agreements and other legal instruments necessary for the creation of a road consortium. Mike, you're on. Can you
you hear me?
your mic?
All right, thank you. What you have before you was basically the next step in exploring the consortium and innovation grant. That will enable us to dial in on. My plan is to then present updates every board meeting from here on up. I obviously have a timeline for the innovation. We're gonna work as diligently as we can, but to achieve that, we're also gonna maintain our due diligence and make sure that the Salem Lakes is the priority in any agreement we enter into. So this is just an exploration of the grant and the consortium.
Okay, Pete, do you want to speak to this at all?
Sure. So, at our EDC meeting, just prior to this one, the EDC, unanimously voted to, request that the board, consider and potentially give approval to having our administrator and legal counsel, investigate further, just as, Michael was saying. So currently there's a number of municipalities that are interested. Of those, there's definitely three. I should say definitely three. There's definitely two besides us, thus far. Paddock Lake and Twin Lakes, are interested in moving forward, and there's other in the last 2 days. Additional communities have reached out, to Paddock Lake, saying that they're interested in also getting on board potentially. So, but in that, what's it all about? And for anybody who is not up to speed, it's about combining services, to potentially, get discounts, through volume, scale of economy. And what is it currently focused on? Roads, road maintenance, that kind of concept. So at this point, continuing to investigate how this could possibly work, I think is a good move. But that's, I think, I don't know if you're looking for something further, but that's what I got for you right now.
Brian, did you want to add anything before the questions start?
As
far as the timeline, yeah, it's tough. We're trying to get all these communities together, and trying to meet this March 31st timeline is difficult, but I think it is doable. Not every aspect of the consortium has to be worked out. The main key things that we would have to work out would be to obviously set up the consortium, the FEIN number. We would need to get the IGA completed, intergovernmental agreement, and also fill out the SL 405 application. And then we would need to get together with the village and work on what services we're willing to transfer, and look at 2025. And, you know, the village, the board has to decide, you know, is it maintenance? Is it roads? Is it, you know, do we go a little bit beyond that and start looking at maybe sewer lining or cammering? Different things that we can kind of throw all in the shopping cart and transfer that service. And there's potentially a lot of money available with the Department of Revenue, with the Innovation Grant. Let's just say hypothetically that, you know, I'm gonna use a simple number for math, $1 million in 2025, that would amount to about 1.25 million in grant money. The nice thing about this is, and I know that there's hesitation that we're going to be turning over control, but we're really not. At the end of the day, this consortium is going to handle different aspects of whether it's road work, maintenance, sewer lining, or cammering. And we get to decide, hey, we want to bid this project out through economy of scale. We can bid that separately to prove that it's actually saving money. It comes back, we make a decision, hey, we can afford this in our budget, we move forward. And after, you know, 5 years of collecting the money from the innovation grant, if the village decides that it's not the right fit for them, and they can even do it before that, but they lose out on those monies, they can withdraw from the consortium. We also have it set up so that there will be another consortium, which we're not really focusing in right now, so that the different communities that want to get involved, the economy of scale bidding without all the rigid restrictions with the innovation. And you know, the rigid restrictions are that you need to transfer, you know, whether it's legal, engineering, you're going to have inspections done, you're going to have a treasurer and things like that. But there will be a board constructed from each community. And I do believe that if we just have 3 or 4 communities, this will be relatively easy to do. It's not going to be, you know, originally we were thinking it would be much larger, but the innovation grant for some of these communities, for example, Bristol, I don't think would, as I had a long discussion with Randy, they just didn't spend any money in 2025. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to be part of that. However, they want to be part of economy of scale bidding. So it's really hard to look at this and say this isn't something that should be at least entertained and pursued to see how it works out. So I have open to any questions regarding it. I know the stuff pretty much in and out. And if not, I think at this point in time, we're kind of in exploratory steps as far as how do we put the pieces of the puzzle together quickly so that we can benefit from the innovation grant.
So I think, Ramsey, can you talk to what the intergovernmental agreement would consist of, what that does, why we need that in place before we can apply,
Oh, for sure.
right?
Yeah, it has to.
So I applaud you for continuing to look into this and build it. I'm not aware whether anyone in the state has such a consortium. So I don't know if any of us can look at any model. We're creating the wheel, which can be a good thing.
Milwaukee
You tell
has-
me.
Yeah, Milwaukee does have something that we could similar, but not as rigid as this.
Yeah, so municipalities can engage in intermunicipal agreements between them. That's how most fire department EMS joint services are established and created through IGAs, and the state statutes allow that. So when you think about your timing, every municipality that is in this thing will need to have their governing bodies approve it. To build the IGA here, basically the agreement, this isn't a simple agreement. It's not going to be 5 pages, 10 pages. this could be 20, 30 pages long, and I'll briefly tell you about some of the terms you may need. And then, so we would build it. We'd float it to the other communities. They're gonna fly spec it with their administration and legal counsel and the like. Back and forth you go until we get to a consensus document that everyone can live with. And then that consensus document still has to be brought to the governing bodies for final approval. It's at that point that this entity takes its life. Some of the terms, who's the membership? How are they doing their meetings? How are we establishing voting rights? You're gonna have to have all sorts of fiscal terms, budgets, how money is spent, auditing. We need exit terms and what happens when parties exit. Is there any property involved, whether equipment, facilities, building, who owns what, who gets what when they exit? How does that all work? And then the big ones, services, what is this thing hoping to do? And who is making those choices? How are those choices being made? So let's think about even a simple RFP or bidding. How is that actually going to happen? I mean, all that needs to be spelled out. That could be an entire page of the contract. Who is sending out the bids? Who is making the decisions on the bids? How is that binding the communities that are involved? So yeah, there's
I've seen
lot
a
of moving
draft
parts.
with IGA I put together that covers pretty much everything you just said. Not that it's in the legal sense, but
Right. So, I mean, your job is to continue to talk and try to build those terms and build consensus on those terms. So that when we get to work, yes, we could try to look at other agreements that might be in the ballpark to build the terms. But I don't want to be in my legal office making policy choices for you. It's
Yeah.
for you and all the other communities. You do your due diligence and you build consensus terms, and you also build terms that are ultimately going to protect the village. And then once I know those terms and what the goals are, I can help you with the language, right? But I don't want to be in my office making policy decisions. I think you understand that.
So do the other communities that are interested also do this with their attorneys?
I
Or
think,
is it one attorney that drafts it and then circulates?
I think the most efficient would be one attorney, and it's likely that the other attorneys for the other communities know our firm. So we could probably draft it up, and we've drafted many IGAs over the years. And so we could probably draft it up and then route it to everybody and try to keep it moving. I don't think that there would be serious dispute on the contract terms, except those that may really deal with the squeal points, whatever those might be, the fiscal issues, the real things that cause heartburn that need to be, ultimately approved by each governing body. But if you're doing the due diligence beforehand and you're doing the talking and the communication, hopefully you start to smooth out what those rough spots might be. I'll also say, a lot of these IGAs, communities enter in them and it's like the honeymoon period, right? But then what happens 10, 15, 20 years down the road? I think we all see it in the news. Sometimes we see it in suits where the agreements, the IGAs are now falling apart. The communities are fighting with one another. Who's funding what? I don't want to be in this agreement anymore, so forth and so on. And so that's why it's important to have good terms and a lot of due diligence upfront, smooth things out. And then you go from there.
So then part of this IGA, the attorney's fees for it, because would part of the IGA be that whoever is going to be in this, that they also share in the cost of the creation of this and doing it?
Absolutely. And I
Not
think,
just on us?
I think each governing body that's interested in being involved in this can make that preliminary determination that.
Because I don't really want to spend a ton of money
Correct.
with you to create this, and we're assuming all that,
no, we shouldn't do that.
right?
Well, I
So-
It should be
think-
a shared expense.
Just to jump in here, I don't know that we would be automatically making that decision tonight, that the consortium in general with the other communities would automatically want us to use our attorney and then everybody pay in.
Well, somebody's got to create this document,
Uh-huh,
but that's
and-
what you need right away to.
100%.
My
So-
point, my point on that is if there's 3 communities that are going to be applying, then those 3 communities, if Ramsey were to be the one to draw it up and do all this and circulate it and do, whatever those attorneys' fees are, that the 3 communities then will split that cost. It shouldn't just be on us.
So,
Right.
that's exactly right. Well, I was going to say
Yeah.
is that the direction would be to have them go back, work with the other communities and as a group, they'll be able to come up with that answer.
Right.
If it's going to be
So if
Ramsey
it
and his
was-
firm, or it might be another firm's already
Correct,
maybe
right.
getting on
So if
that.
another attorney does it, so we
Right.
pay a third, or whatever. If it's 4, it's a quarter, right? Is that,
Yeah,
that's part of that?
That's right. And I think once
Okay.
you hammer out sort of a consensus document of what the core terms are, then everyone can also agree which community's legal counsel is going to draft this up. Each community can at least authorize its staff and legal counsel to actually start drafting this stuff up
Mhm.
and then to share that cost. So yeah, once you're there and the other communities are there, they can all do that. Then we get to work and start drafting this thing up.
Okay,
But yeah, I mean, I certainly am not going to start drafting up a document until I know that we have the green light from the board here to
Mhm.
do that, because such an agreement takes quite a while to build.
Right. Okay, is there any questions from the board? I'll give you some of mine.
Okay.
that You're already aware of is, so at what point do we figure out, I understand the point of getting to the, application stage.
Mhm.
Then after that, I understand that, and you did a good job at the EDC explaining that it's really, once we do this, we get this agreement, we apply, then it's the building blocks, right? It's how do we put this together, all of that. How does and when does the decision be made on, and the creation of the board, the attorney that you'll use, the engineer you'll use, is that part of the board? That is, how does that work and when does that work?
So, and this is obviously up to the board. Baxter and Woodman has put a tremendous amount of time in this, but I've made it clear to them that the goal is the least amount of cost. So probably for 2026, Baxter and Woodman would give a proposal. R.A. Smith could do one too. I'm saying that of what they think their involvement costs would be for 2026. 2026 is mainly going to be the structure, how you're going to do the bidding. You'll accept bidding obviously late in 2026 to start putting it out for 2027. But as far as who's going to be the attorney on staff, who's going to be the engineer, those things have to be worked out of what the board thinks is reasonable. And some feedback would probably be helpful. I mean, I can create a boilerplate document that has worked in other areas, but it might not work for us. The IGA is complicated when you get into equipment and things like that. We're not really tackling that right now. We're going to avoid that because we think the first step is just get to the bidding process so we can reduce costs on bidding. Then we can look at maintenance because there'll be money. Let's say that the village gets a $500,000 check every year. I don't know what the numbers are going to be, but it's an easy number. They're going to decide how much of that money do they want to put into future endeavors, whether it's maintenance, crack filling, seal coating, and that'll be a collective agreement for the board to decide, hey, we want to put in 25% of, our innovation grant money to put it towards X, Y, and Z, and the goal to reduce costs.
So when you keep mentioning board, clarify which board are we talking about?
So the consortium board. So the consortium itself will have one member from each community. And there will not be the ability to be a voting, it'll be all votes will be a 3/4 majority for anything that happens. So if you got 4 members, 3 have to come to an agreement. So the goal is to make sure everybody is unified. Listen, the goal at the end of the day is just to save money. And if that goal changes, then it's not going to work. So the goal, you're going to have one member from each community. It should be a board member because it involves money. I recommend that. That's up to you guys. And then obviously there'll be supporting staff that will work with that board member, make sure they're educated in what's going on. You're going to have an engineer that will be involved in pushing these projects forward. So the goal is to reduce our costs and our involvement so that another entity can do it at a lower cost. That's really what we're trying to do. If it doesn't work, and it turns into something that we didn't anticipate, we can always withdraw. And I think that's the nice thing about this. You're not locked in. And if you decide that you don't want, here's the best part. Let's say year three, you decide to do nothing, no work through the consortium, you're still gonna get the grant money.
So the staff would still do their everyday job of making the decisions of what recommendations and
Sure.
based on whatever criteria you guys use, right? And
Brett
then
picks, these projects.
that is
are the ones that are gonna
submitted
be
to the consortium.
to bid.
Where is the voting at with that? What,
Well,
what
there is-
kinds
there-
of things would they vote on?
So it's something,
Once the bids come.
so
to the
let's say a voting would be like, okay, we want to invest in equipment to do crack sealing that we're gonna share.
Mm.
That would be something that they would vote on.
Got it.
So they to get together and be unified, to look at the costs. And that would obviously something that the board would first have to approve before that member could even consider even voting on that.
So it's two stages is what you're suggesting. It's gonna be the board agreeing to whatever projects they want to take before the.
Correct. Because there's money involved. I mean, at the end of the day, you can't bring projects forward that you can't afford to do. I mean,
So that would be part of the budget process or no?
Well, I think we would still budget for roads. It would just be
Sure.
how we paid for them. But one thing that I want to, I guess, address is it keeps coming up like the 5 years and where that comes from, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but so that end of March deadline, if we make it in there, then the design of the grant is X amount of dollars per year for 5 years.
through 2030,
Yeah,
correct?
until 2030, and then talked about, like we could make up our mind to do something different. The concept that everybody's currently been discussing is the IGA agreement would have something in it along the lines of at any point in time, if somebody wanted to exit, there'd be a certain type of like notification, hey, whether that's 60 days,
Kind of a
3 months.
requirement for the Department of Revenue. to
And
have.
so we wouldn't necessarily have to even write it out for the full 5 years.
So does the DOR have a minimum number of communities
Well,
that
that's-
can join?
that is interesting. They don't. However, the more communities you have, the more that you can, because you want to get the maximum dollars. So I would say if you had just 2 communities, you're still going to get money. Having 4 communities, I'm fairly confident that you'll get all the money you're asking. Because the goal of the innovation grant is shared services to reduce costs, because state government figured out their villages aren't getting enough money. So
The question I have is, so if you have Salem that's got 32 miles of road, okay? And you have, say, just as a, for instance, Twin Lakes has 20 miles of road, Paddock Lake has 10 miles of road. How are you gonna divide this up equally to where we're gonna get our 32 miles? I mean, this is, how are you gonna divide this up?
So it's a good question. So each year, the village is going to decide what their budgetary availability or allowances they have. At that time, Brad and staff will decide which projects they're going to do. Those projects will go into the consortium. The consortium will bid out all the projects for all the communities. And what the goal is with this other consortium is it could be pretty large. So the larger we get it, we should be able to reduce the costs even more. So you're not doing all your roads on year one. You're doing it over a long period of time. So you're going to do bits and pieces. And the goal is to reduce the cost for the bits and pieces. Part of the board commitment, not this board, but the consortium, is making sure the scheduling meets the requirement of that particular community.
But bouncing off of what trustee Gant said, if we have the larger mileage of road, and we submit that
Okay.
to the consortium, and Twin Lakes does the same, and Paddock Lake does the same. And they come up with $900,000. Just throwing this out there, just so I can understand the numbers.
Okay.
Does that mean each of the 3 get 300,000?
No.
No.
It's each, so if we bid out 5 projects and let's say they're $1 million, that's what we're responsible for. Paddock Lake does 2 projects and it's 200,000, that's what they're responsible for. We're only responsible for the projects that we submit to the consortium. Their job is to reduce the cost.
No, I get that, but I'm saying when the grant money comes.
Oh, no, that's the beautiful thing. It's all ours. So that money will be written out to the village of Salem Lakes. You guys will decide what happens with that money. You could say, hey, I only want to put whatever the administrative costs in the consortium, nothing else, we want to spend it on something else. You can do that. That will weaken your grant possibility because they want to see you reinvesting into shared services to reduce your costs. So that's where the board's got to be smart about how they use that money so that they can show the state that you want to reinvest it into. Let's say a perfect example, maybe you want to buy seal coat equipment, and that equipment is going to be shared amongst the community so we can reduce our costs. Maybe, or crack filling equipment, something like that. And then we would have our staff use that equipment when, you know, what the time would be. The goal is not to take work away from our employees on maintenance, is try to give them the right tools so that they can do it and reduce the costs.
And that was a great question in regards to where does when we go for the money, where we're going to be going for it as Salem Lakes, as Paddock Lake, as Twin Lakes, as an example. And then those checks will come to the respective communities. And so that doesn't go into a pot and then get shared. I hear what you're saying is that if we have the largest area, 32 square miles, we've got a lot of roads compared to some other communities. And so the way we understand it is the money would come to the community.
Yeah, the dollar amount has nothing to do with your roads. It has to do with what 2025's, what you expended. I mean, if let's just say the smallest community that gets involved spent $3 million, then they have an opportunity to get 25% of that 3 million for 5 years.
That's only, excuse me for interrupting, but that's only based on the grant amount is based on what was done in 2025.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Not what you, if we were not to get in or meet this deadline next year, it would be based on what, 2025 or 2026?
So it would be 2026. There are some communities that are gonna take that route. The risky thing is the money gonna be there? Because they're gonna make some changes, tweaks, because the money's not going out. This is a difficult ask. If we can achieve it, we will most likely be able to get all this revenue from this grant. As they make tweaks to it, I think the money will vaporize much quicker.
And to go down that road a little further, the rules of this grant in the first round, no municipalities, villages, towns in the state of Wisconsin, or very few, were able to come up with what could work to get the money. So all this money still remained out there. And then they changed it a little bit. And
even now there's, I think the biggest grant right now, when I talked to the DOR a few weeks ago, was only like $2 million. So up 300 million, I think at this time, only about 280 or 285 million still is left over.
And so then what Brian was referring to, if we say we didn't apply in March, which would reflect off of our expenditures of 2025, then we don't know. Do changes happen to how this grant is used when we would go to apply by, I'm just gonna say March of 26, if it's the same timeline? We don't know. We do know now that if we do this, we would, and we've got approved, we would get a percentage, 25% of our expenditures of 2025 over 5 years, which totals a number, well, depending on what we put in the bucket, right?
It just, if you take 125% of whatever your total is, that's what you have the opportunity to get in grant. You know, we would have started this sooner, but the state took a long time to put this second set of rules together. So it took time to kind of navigate this. Not a lot of people knew how Act 15 was going to work, and it took many months to try to figure out how this might work for this type of concept. At the end of the day, they just are trying to push communities to do you know, they don't want you to use the word shared service, but it is shared services. We're trying to figure out how to work together to lower our costs. And you could dream up all kinds of things that you could do this in. But, you know, Dennis and I talked about the lakes. I mean, that would be something. You could talk about sewer plants, but we just feel this is probably the simplest thing to do right now because everybody needs roads. They're expensive. We got to figure out how to do them cheaper.
So essentially, we assemble what we would any other year, right? We give that to the consortium. They get that from all the communities. They put that out to bid. The contractor submits a bid and the contractor is breaking that bid down by municipality. So we know what our share is, but it's like buying in bulk, right?
Correct.
So like we get a less expensive unit price because it's more bulk.
I
Does
think
that make
similar
sense?
to,
I'm trying to simplify it a little bit.
As a
And-
builder, the bigger the project, the lower the cost.
And then we still will, work with the contractor that's awarded the bid. And, we have our timelines in there, everything like that.
Yeah,
should
we
work
won't
similar.
work with the contractor. Well, indirectly we will, but the job of the consortium is to, you're gonna have an engineer on staff, you'll have inspections, they're gonna do that for you. And that's the point is that we're gonna reduce staff load. And let's say these projects, these three projects, hey, this is great, we saved whatever, 10-15%. Somebody else will do a lot of those services, so you won't be directly involved, but you will be directly involved in approving it. I mean, at the end of the day, if something was done improperly, that will be passed on to the consortium to talk to the contractor to rectify the situation.
Mhm.
So the only unknowns today as it exists are all of the administrative charges, i.e. the engineer, the legal fee, this treasurer, as you put it, who's going to. If the money is coming directly to the village, why do you need a treasurer?
Well, because you want to transfer the service to benefit from it. You don't have to. But it is important to, you're creating a consortium, and if it starts getting murky and it doesn't start quite look like a consortium. So the treasurer's job is, for instance, let's say the project comes to completion and the contractor submits to the consortium for payment. The consortium will issue a request from the village board, which you'll vote on, to issue payment. Then that'll go to the consortium and they'll transfer it to the contractor. So there will be some administrative costs, but the goal is to reduce that. I think the treasurer, and we talked about, we all use similar accounting firms, and maybe that's how we do it. So everybody feels confident that the money is being paid the way it should be. And that might be a good idea. There could be auditing and stuff like that. So it would be nice to keep that streamlined.
to jump in here, you talked about administrative costs and that the grant money, the concept of that is to help get this off the ground. So the original first few years, that's kind of the focus of that money is to help pay for those kinds of items, the administration.
Should be small though. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, engineering, there'll be costs. Legal, there'll be some costs. There's obviously, but engineering is really where it is. But once the boilerplate specification sheet is created, there will be some tweaks depending on the project. That will help streamline it because, as somebody that does asphalt, they don't want to have 4 different mixes. They want to have one mix. So that is the goal, to streamline specifications. Will there be projects that will need specifics? Sure. And those can be included in the bidding process. The goal is try to streamline this so that a contractor, and we've reached out and talked to the large contractors, and they think this will save substantial money by doing this, because they'll be able to go into an area and do a tremendous amount of work over a given amount of time instead of doing piecemeal, hitting the project here, hitting the project there. So they'll be able to move their equipment into a zone and be able to go out and do these projects.
Okay.
There was one other thing that was brought up at the meeting I was at in Twin Lakes, and that was the 115%.
Mhm.
So if we spent $1 million last year, we did, say in 2025. So in 2026, we could only spend 1,100,000.
Correct. So this is why there is a consortium B. Because yes, we'll be limited to running through those projects it's a strange rule, but the goal is they want you to reduce costs. So that's a good question. So $1 million you spent in, last year, you'll be able to spend 1.150 the following year. But with the consortium B, you can still benefit from the economy of scale. It'll still go out to bid. That'll just be handled in-house. You're just going to take advantage of a consortium putting stuff out to bid in a larger scale to reduce your costs. The consortium B is really set up there for those situations like what Dennis is talking about, and for the communities that do not want to participate in the innovation grant in the rigid rules that are involved in that.
So
But we've talked as a village that we know that for us to fix our roads and maintain them, we should be doing anywhere between $2 and $4 million a year. We're not near that.
It was
now.
4 million, I
Yeah,
think it was.
Okay, but if you're suggesting that one of the rules is we can't go above 115% of the previous year, it's gonna take us a while.
That's why the consortium B exists, because you can participate in both.
I was gonna jump
Yeah.
in and say is that, and I'm not positive, but I think the 115% I think runs into, it shouldn't cost you. It should cost you less to operate, right? And the cap is 115%. Because if it costs more, you're not achieving the economy of scale the state is hoping that this achieves. And like Brian was saying, the option B, or even separately, we say, you know what, we're gonna go put this through the consortium and we're gonna do these 2 miles over here just on our own. But we could totally do that. We wouldn't have to entirely.
You bid it out and then you would get that discounted price, but instead of paying through the consortium, you pay directly. I mean, the goal is not to limit what the village can or can't
So the
do.
value of the consortium is to get the grant money. So if you're doing a mile of road, hopefully with the money, you can do a mile and a half of road, right? Because you're saving on your cost. So I guess my question for legal and you, Mike, is technically we need to have something in about 4 weeks in order to, am I right on that?
We got a little more time than that. I mean, we got all the way until March 31st.
Well,
but
that's to
the
apply.
IGA, we want to, over the next 3 or 4 weeks, nail that down.
Right, so about 4 weeks to get that done. Is that doable?
You probably need, yeah, I mean, I think it's doable. You need to get approval from these other members who's contributing and which firm is going to create this thing. And I think I think could be created, a document within a week or two. But then, you know, you still have the need to get it run past the other administrators and their legal counsel for their 2
Yeah.
cents. I'm not trying to delay it. I'm just trying to give you reality and.
It's a big ask.
Right. So.
So
Are
when-
you sure on these other municipalities? Because Twin Lakes has not taken this up formally yet.
Yeah, I don't know the particulars of each community. I'm going to speak with Walworth in the next week. You know, at the end of the day, we know Paddock Lake is on board. We know Salem is hopefully interested in this. Walworth we already had a meeting with them. They asked for me to come and put a presentation to help the board understand it more. It's a lot to accomplish on March 31st, but if we want to take advantage of this money, that's what we have to do.
So when is Twin Lakes and Paddock Lake going before their boards to ask to move forward?
That information I don't have with me. That's a village decision. And I know that I've been told that Paddock Lake will take special meetings and fast track this. I would assume that Twin Lakes will do something similar. I think everybody's looking, you know, we're kind of the
Because
lead.
we could do that tonight. And we say, sure, let's go forward, right? But then we're now at a standstill until they do that.
No, and I get that. So now what's important is that Salem says, hey, we're interested. You know, we're the ones that started this. So we say, hey, we're really interested. Everybody else needs to get on board.
Quickly.
Yeah. And they understand that, you know, listen, if they want the money, they have to. They don't, and they can delay it and maybe the next cycle, there'll be money there, but there might not be. And if there isn't, then that would really be a shame because it's not just the one time, it's 5 years. So that's the calculation.
So let me ask this too, then. If we do that and we can make it happen, and let's say we get money year 1, we get money year 2, year 3, we decide, nope, we don't want to. Is there a penalty for taking that money?
There's a 3-year minimum. So I can't, what would happen is if you withdraw, you would not get the money on the 3rd year. So there's a 3-year minimum to all agreements.
Would we have to reimburse any of that money back?
Once the grant is awarded, because there's a schedule of things that have to be achieved to do that, then once the money's awarded, it can't be withdrawn.
Okay.
So where does the 3-year minimum come into exit?
Well, it's for the grant money. So you could exit, but then you're gonna lose the grant money. If you go past 3 years, as I was telling you before, you could literally do nothing on year, 4 and 5 and still get the grant money.
But is there any idea what we're gonna have to invest to even get this rolling?
Well, I mean, the biggest cost is legal. Everything else associated with this is really, it's mainly time putting this together. It's not like this entity is building a building or we might have the meetings here. I mean, it really is going to decide between the communities where they want to have these meetings. It'll be a public meeting. So one of the members of the board should be on this group. And once you get the application in, then you can start to, this IGA needs to be firm to meet the requirements of the DOR, but you can also create it in a way that you can make some tweaks based on, you get together 3/4 vote and okay, we're going to make some adjustments here. DOR is not going to have an issue with that. It's just there's certain provisions that they want to see. They just don't want something to be kind of half-hearted put together. They want it to be.
So Ramsey, with this intergovernmental agreement, does that mean this consortium board falls under the rules of Roberts and open meeting?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah. And including having, is it called a FEN number?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 So essentially you got to set up an island that you're transferring. If everybody just thinks about it this way, you have to transfer the service. If you don't transfer the service, you're not going to get the money, the grant for that.
So the service is the bidding.
The
and
ser- the service is the work. So if you transfer the road bidding and the money associated with that, all that counts.
Okay.
So that's where communities they're starting to, they're calling us and trying to figure out, hey, how can we do this? Because they see an opportunity. There could be some money.
But that's the minimum bidding for roads. We could still go beyond on our own through staff.
Sure. I mean, there's really anything that you're willing to work with another community on, you can throw into the mix.
No, I get that piece, but we're only going to get so much of that grant money based on the previous year.
Correct.
But if we want to repair more roads than that, we can still do that.
That's where the
Absolutely.
other version, the B version.
The B version, I just want to make sure that we don't, once we hit our cap, oh, well, now we got to do it the regular way. I want to still be able to bid stuff in the economy of scale. So that's why the B version is another island. It's the same members. It's the same voting body. There would be a different president and vice president, but it's the same board.
The A item, the A consortium is for the grant, the B is for.
Correct. And I don't want to get mixed up. We're getting into a lane that we can work on later in the year. It's not critical now. The thing is, if we're going to do the innovation grant, that's got to be
So
laser
tonight's
focus.
decision then is to move forward with the development of that. But once we do that, then I guess Ramsey, Mike, we obviously have to wait for these other communities to vote and decide to move forward. And then it is just, I would assume, administrators getting together and saying, who's your attorney, and then have the attorneys talk. I mean, how does that work?
My suspicion is we're gonna be the first ones jumping the pool and you're gonna see people follow.
Yeah.
I think we're setting the template for what this is gonna be. The February stuff we're trying to address here is mainly implementation of a subgroup within the staff to figure out, is this doable? That'll be quick, in short order, we'll figure that out. That'll be myself, the treasurer, and the public works director. Anyone else we can need to bring in. While Ramsey's working through, once we get an idea, if it's something we want to explore, Ramsey will look to the IJ, but data compilation and reviewing of that stuff. That's really what, in my opinion, what February is going to bring a lot of the internal. Can we do this? And to your point, I don't know that we're going to. I'm not in favor of rushing anything. We need to do our due diligence, but we very well may be able to hit these timelines, and that'd be great.
Yeah.
I think there's value in exploring the collaboration on it.
Yeah, and I don't know that tonight is exactly as you described, Madam President, to move forward. It's, I think and correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, tonight we're looking to give you and Ramsey permission to investigate further
Well,
The-
It says to begin development of the intermunicipal agreements and
Well-
other legal instruments necessary. So it could be.
It
Yeah.
could be, but I
But
think. this-
I was just asking like how do the attorneys get together and then, is that you guys will figure all that out and then let us know and.
I think what you probably need is, really board would need to direct legal counsel to basically draft a legal opinion letter as to what are all the nuts and bolts that we're gonna need in this thing? What do I see as being, possibly problematic in, the materials you've already sent me? So that you can continue to smooth all of this out as you talk to these other potential partners. And then once you get consensus amongst everybody, then everybody meets again and then green lights, okay, build this thing. Here are the fixes or answers to some of the concerns that have been raised, legal or staff. Build this thing. And which firm is gonna build it. So I think you gotta take it step by step. As Mike said, let staff talk through what the issues might be. Let me, on the legal side, I'm looking, I think I have a document that you called Wisconsin Road Consortium Draft.
It's just that, that's probably the IGA that it's.
Well, yeah, it's
It's
38.
not a legal document.
No, I know. It's 38 pages.
Yeah,
And within it are the basic beginning.
yeah, I have an IGA, I think I
Terms.
sent Mike too,
Okay,
that's separate from that.
yeah, we'll make sure I get that. And if you think there's one in Milwaukee, I was trying to Google and find it. I couldn't find it. But if you have samples you want me to look at, and then let me look at these things and give you sort of a simple letter that sort of spells out what I think we all need to do.
Okay, and so then we should have an item on for next agenda in 2 weeks for probably this exact same wording. And then that'll give you about 2, maybe 3 weeks to create this document and get it signed, right? Is that,
No, I'm not creating any document. What I'm creating for you would be basically a letter that outlines what needs to be done or where are the concerning
Right.
terms.
I meant
they-
at our next meeting, we were
Correct.
directing you to then create and work with other community.
Correct.
Okay,
And that in the next meeting, so if I can get you a legal opinion letter in 2 weeks, and let's hope that that can be done. You would then need the next 2, 3, 4 weeks to meet with the other potential members to smooth out all of these issues.
right.
And then reach resolution on all of that stuff, build consensus. And then at that point, each member would have to meet and actually authorize the creation of this document
Right.
of the IGA and which firm is doing that.
And I think I would like to see that this 2 weeks where you're doing that opinion letter. I think from tonight moving forward, we give our administrator direction and obviously
I-
talk with,
yeah.
to talk whichever community he needs to, and they need to together, working with Ramsey
Right.
to be able to work through that letter as well as get a better concept as
Right.
to.
Well, because how long is the application? Once this agreement is signed,
2 page.
how quickly can that be done?
So the little bit of challenge is meeting with staff to get them to understand what they're willing to transfer. And then breaking that down, what those costs are, because there's some
That have
stuff.
to be in the grant
Yeah,
application?
that is critical. So that's part of the SL 405. So that shouldn't be that big of a ask. Some of the stuff will be easy to pull out of the budget. Other things are gonna be a little harder to quantify. We're gonna have to basically do a little bit of figuring out what makes sense and what percentage it is and just go with that.
But that's a staff decision at that point.
Yeah.
The board decision is really this agreement, right? And to
Yeah,
go
the SL
forward.
405.
I'm just trying to figure out in
could
my
be
head
done.
timeline because we don't really have
We don't have,
a
so
lot, so.
this can push into March. It's just that we should be working on the application. We
Right,
should be
so by
doing two
February
things at once.
17th, we should have a legal opinion and then be able to give you guys maybe the green light to go ahead and work on the next part of it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I suggest a legal opinion, because one of the issues swirling through my mind, you mentioned the county. you know, the counties can be a whole different creature in terms of what they can and cannot do for the statutes. I have no idea whether the Wisconsin statutes allow counties to get involved in something.
We're not doing anything with the county.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right, good.
yeah, no, no.
Um,
We understand that.
okay.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, you know, with roads, highways and the like, you have provisions not just within the state statute dealing for villages and bidding and the bidding laws, but you also have a separate statute governing roads and highways and biddings there. And so all of that needs to be looked at and then synced. And so I'm not saying that this wouldn't work. I'm just saying you got to look at all that because you don't want to
Right.
create some creature and then find out that it's contrary to the statutes.
Right.
Well, that's why it's important to understand that we're not trying to do like what the county does that has their own staff do paving. We're still gonna use union labor to do it just like we normally do any project. So that should help us avoid some of those pitfalls.
Okay.
The only other thing I'd like to know is how many dollars we're talking about. This last year, we borrowed $1.9 million. Most of that is going for roads, 400,000 for redoing fire truck. But how much?
It was 1.16 million.
Dollars in this grant. That's a rough idea.
So Brad, could you repeat that for us, please?
Just paving was 1.16 million.
1.16.
That was 2025.
I'd hate to go through all of this and find out we spent.
Well, I mean, so that's, at least you have a starting point and now you look at other layers of this and, you know, maybe you get to $1.5 million.
Yeah, there could be some engineering fees or whatever that can go in there, some more tentacles. that
You're
are
right,
added.
Exactly.
But it's 1 million.
About almost 1.2 million, just to start, and then you go from there.
Okay.
With all that being said, I'll make a recommendation to allow the EDC to move forward with the village staff and administrators.
I think it'd
Uh,
actually be
I
to
think
direct the administrator.
not the
Okay,
EDC, just the, for staff and the administrator to move forward with, right?
Yep, that
Go
sounds
ahead.
good.
What should it be, Ramsey?
And for legal counsel
Okay,
to develop a legal opinion letter on the development of a
there you
consortium.
go.
Sounds good to me. That's emotional.
Do you have all that, Sarah?
Do we
Okay.
even have enough information presented to us as far as what's gonna happen here?
So tonight, if to clarify, Dennis, your motion is our administrator and legal counsel will be looking further into the validity and information that they're going to bring back to us. So I think your question gets answered on the next round. I don't know that it gets answered tonight.
First of all, I mean, we don't even know who else is gonna be in with this thing. Paddock Lake probably is. Okay, we are. I talked to the village president in Twin Lakes today. They don't know nothing about it. Nothing's been presented to them at all as far as the village board. And then Wheatland and Randall all work with the county. So who else is gonna bring on with this stuff?
So
Had a meeting in Twin Lakes and there was the administrator was the one who, and their engineers, the one who made the presentation.
Yeah.
As I had mentioned once before, Lynn, the town of Lynn was there, but their town, again, they could use paving differently from the county. And Union Grove was there. Now they showed interest, so.
yeah, there was like 8 communities there. And then, as I said, in the last 48 hours, 2 more communities have reached out to Paddock Lake saying that they're interested. So you're right. It's important to recognize that we've had maybe roughly 4 meetings as communities together. It's in the very early stages. We're still trying to discover that, and time being of the essence, letting our administrator and legal counsel and staff look to see the validity of this and be ready for when we get to that point is where we're actually at. So I can certainly respect your concern, but we're just not that far down the road yet to know that answer.
And I think this motion is not
Binding.
handicap or is spending a lot of money in this next stage. But it might be important to let the other communities know that, yes, the village of Salem Lakes is in favor of this and they're moving forward. So we can always say no. You know, the
Okay.
devil's in the details.
So I'd like to second Dennis's motion if that hasn't happened already.
It has not. All right, I'm gonna do a roll call on this. Trustee Barheit,
Yes.
trustee Polly,
Yes.
trustee Faber.
Yes.
Trustee Hopkins,
Yes.
trustee Gant,
Yes.
and I am a yes. Motion carries. I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Who did you get, Sarah? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?